The landing gear is the undercarriage of an aircraft or spacecraft and may be used for either takeoff or landing. For aircraft, it's generally needed for both. For aircraft, the landing gear supports the craft when it's not flying, allowing it to take off, land, and taxi without damage. The wheeled landing gear is the most common, with skis or floats needed to operate from snow, ice, water, and skids for vertical operation on land. Faster aircraft have retractable undercarriages which fold away during flight to reduce drag. Before starting the video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to never miss out on any of our videos. After sneaking into the wheel well of a plane, the most common method of stowing away, they can get crushed when the landing gear starts going in. There's not much room. In many aircraft, it's even smaller than the trunk of a car. Things just get worse as the flight reaches higher altitudes, the oxygen levels become extremely low, and stowaways struggle to keep conscious. During the flight, temperatures outside an airplane also drop dramatically. They can drop as low as 75 or 80 degrees below zero, which isn't conducive to blood flow. Speaking of the first one, hypothermia remembers as the plane climbs to the skies, the temperature drops at about 33,000 feet. The temperature drops to about -81 degrees Fahrenheit, which immediately causes severe hypothermia. Remember, this is not a pressurized cabin, there's no heat, there are no vents except that giant hole where the landing gear extends, and we also forgot to mention that the oxygen level and the atmospheric pressure drop so much that any normal person would need an artificial pump to operate their lungs. Your body needs time to adapt to a low level of oxygen in the air. Why do people who attempt to climb Mount Everest take such a long time? They give their bodies time to adapt. When you're on a plane, there's simply not enough time to do so. In 8 or 10 hours from 18,000 feet, you'll feel hypoxia, which will cause you lightheadedness as you climb upward, which will turn into weakness and vision impairment at 22,000 feet. You barely have enough oxygen for your body to function properly, so you'll likely go unconscious, and at around 33,000 feet is when you have hypoxia mixed with hypothermia, and this is where most people lose their lives. However, there are some cases where people didn't even make it to the closing of the wheel doors, the landing gear crushes them as it retracts, and later they find a dead body in the landing gear. There's one reason not to choose a job as an airport security guard, but that's not where most of the stowaways tragically pass away. What happens upon landing? You see, when the airplane starts descending, the wheel doors open, and because the stowaways are unconscious, they can't hold on to the side of the plane and they fall through. Imagine seeing a frozen human body fall from the skies in your backyard, and this is not an uncommon sight. Believe us, but what are the chances of survival and consequences before we get into this? While experts claim that most of the people trying to travel as stowaways in the wheel well of a plane are in dire need of help, they would never even think of suggesting such a daring stunt. Why? Because of those 113 people, 86 of them died. That's a fatality rate of 76. Usually, every 3 out of 4 people die trying to flee their country as a wheel. Well, stowaway, and God only know how many of these cases have never even made it to the public eye, to put it lightly. The odds are not in your favor. Besides, even if you do manage to land, which is as close as to impossible as you can get, do you think that the USA or the UK or any other country you get to will accept you as a legal citizen? Give you a job and pat you on the back and say, "Good job, mate, you pulled through." No. They'll either slap you with a huge fine, imprison you, or just deport you back to your country of origin. That's because embarking on an aircraft as a stowaway is illegal in the majority of countries. While stowaway missions are made that much harder, there's more airport security and nothing escapes the security cameras caught. It's just a matter of time, but have there been any cases of people pulling through? Yes, there have been. But don't get any ideas again. Remember that 3 out of every 4 stowaways end fatally. In one case, they die of hypothermia and hypoxia at extremely cold temperatures and low atmospheric pressure at high altitudes. One of them who survived the ordeal and was one of the first such cases to be reported globally was an Indian man by the name of Pardeep Saini. In October 1996, Pardeep and his younger brother Vijay Saini hid the wheel bay of a British Airways Boeing 747 at New Delhi that was headed to London Heathrow. The brothers, who were car mechanics from Punjab, tried to flee from India after they were accused of being members of a Sikh separatist group. While 22-year-old Pradeep survived the 10-hour flight, 18-year-old Vijay did not. His frozen body fell from the undercarriage as the plane prepared to land at Heathrow. Despite facing temperatures of minus 60 degrees Celsius and starved of oxygen, Pradeep managed to survive the 4,000-mile journey at up to 40,000 feet. According to doctors, Pradeep's body went into a state of suspended animation soon after takeoff, which is like hibernation. Pradeep, who was found by the airline staff on the runway in a confused state, was initially taken to a detention center. He was later released and is now settled in London with his family and works at the Heathrow airport. Well into his 40s, Pradeep had in a 2019 interview said that the trauma of his first ever flight still haunts him. Pradeep has reported hearing issues, joint pain, and depression following the trauma of the journey and losing his brother. "I was in a depression for 6 years. If the two of us died, then it's one thing, or if both of us lived, it's another story. But I lost my younger brother. He was like a friend to me. We grew up playing together," Pradeep told the Mail. There's another recent case. On Monday, the world watched in horror how many Afghans were trying to cling onto a US military jet that was about to take off from Kabul in a desperate attempt to flee the country. Another video also showed at least 2 men falling from the skies from an aircraft. Apparently, they had tried to cling to the wheels of the flight to flee the Taliban, but they could not survive and fell to their deaths. As shocking as it might sound, this is not the first time people have tried to travel on a flight, hiding inside the wheel well, landing gear compartment of an aircraft. And more often than not, such attempts have ended in tragedies. In fact, according to the US Federal Aviation Administration, between 1947 and 2015, there have been 113 documented cases of what are called stowaways, and 86 of them died. In most cases, they have fallen off the flights, crushed during the takeoff or landing. The country with the most reports is Cuba, with 9, followed by the Dominican Republic and China. As many as 34 cases have originated from airports in Africa, but a breakdown of African nations was not immediately available. There are only 3 cases in the United States involving stowaways hiding on US airlines planes. In 1972, authorities found a frozen body in the wheel well of a flight from San Diego to New York. The body of a young man who hid in a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Boston fell from the aircraft into a residential area in 2010. The case of a 16-year-old who survived a 5-hour flight from California to Maui, Hawaii shocked the world. Climbing on the tires of an airplane and up the landing gear structure is not difficult, experts say. CNN aviation analyst Les Abend says it's even easier in darkness. Pilots use flashlights on their walk-around inspections, but they can't see every nook and cranny, he said. And if a stowaway scampers into the gear well after a pilot completes his or her walk-around, his or her presence will not be detected. Crews servicing an airplane or loading luggage are mostly focused on their task that may not catch an unauthorized person on the ramp, Abend said. But still, a stowaway may find it difficult to elude the current high standard of security at airports.